Hi, welcome to Divination Counseling Service, where I'm going to present to you today an ingress moon. Today's ingress moon is May's moon ingress into Libra. So we're going to be looking at a second house moon today, and it's in Libra. So it's kind of pretty strong here because this Libra is ruled by Venus, and so is the second house because Taurus is the sign that naturally sits here, and it's ruled by Venus. So Venus sits up here with the sun, and the interesting thing is the sun is the ruler of the chart. Okay, so that's a pretty interesting configuration. When we look at that, we will note that the it can be related to money. It can be related to I like this part here too, the bonding of children, and it could be related to bonding with others, of pride in your work, and it could also be about needing to go back to work, hoping to get things back up and running, hoping to heal in that way. But I think it's also about value systems, and the moon is asking us to look at what we value. And here we have to ask ourselves, do we value people more than money? And I don't think people do in general, but I also think that we have to think about things like other people, which is what the sun and Venus in the 11th house are asking us to do, to look at the larger whole. Now, the moon and Venus are also they're in a goal house. The 11th house is a goal house. So we are achieving our goals. We really are. But if you look at what are the influences of our environment of this chart, we see those complications. Here's our body awareness. But it's also ornamental solutions. In other words, these are just band-aid solutions. These are not things that are going to be going to make everything go away. No, these are like band-aids because we have a bigger problem, and in order for us to get back into action, there are smaller band-aids we can put on something that will at least cover up, at least from the physical perspective, what we can do. Isn't that interesting? Because we wear masks. Now, and masks would be another asteroid. So it's just really interesting how one thing leads to another in astrology. Once you start, you just keep going. So we see all this. We know about these solutions. I'm very concerned because I also know that the Latissius and the Shiva are both, those two asteroids kind of indicate that there is a withdrawal and that interruptions on a withdrawal. So in other words, people are trying to go back, but then I wonder if some things won't be backed off on again. Okay, so get ready for that. We'll hear about that in the next 3 days because this is all that this is 3 days. The other thing that this chart is real prominent about is let's look across here to the 6th house. This is where a lot of the stuff lays, where we have Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn. Recognize that Pluto and Jupiter are in trine. We are trying to heal on our day-to-day reality. We are there. Here, look at this, our masks, Cupido. Okay, I knew that they were going to show up somewhere. So and so close to this, their strategy so that we can go back about our business. Isn't that interesting? Cupido because it's covering our faces, all right? And that's what that represents. So Saturn and Pallas are strategy for like structure. They're lessons as well, strategy to learn lessons. We are learning lessons. We have a lot going on. Saturn is the strongest planet in this chart. So learning lessons, key. Up here, we have the whole awful situation going on in Minneapolis, but it's also taking place all over the country. It really is a part of the Aries point. It really is. It's also something we need a solution on. But look at this, and now you're going to know my love of asteroids. Self-destructive actions. These are all an aspect. Excitement about that is this, in other words, this excitement is causing this self-destructive, and it's destroying businesses. Apollon down here, okay? Ow. Wow, okay? And it's because of a death. It's so painful. Psyche, there's wounding. There's so much wounding of death that it's brought a revolt. Look at that. Uranus, Saturn. Saturn is in the sign that, look at this. Uranus is normally an Aquarian thing. But instead, Aquarius, and they're an aspect, they're only 7 degrees apart for slow moving planets. They're not as close as they could be, but, and will be at times, but the revolution is here, okay? And I think that that's why you're seeing what you're seeing in the news. And unfortunately, because it's in the chart as we go in toward the future, it's the highest point in the chart. I do believe this is the one thing that we will see again in another moon ingress chart, unfortunately. But life is what it is, scary as that might be. Now, I want to point out a couple of things, okay? We're going to look at, first of all, a report for Venus, which shows a square to Mercury, reminding us that this is a continuation of the last several days, where what's going on in the mind and the heart might be different, or the heart and the mind are on two different planes. You might emotionally feel one thing, but the mind is telling you something different. That's continuing. But all these beautiful trines right here, this is about our healing. We are trying to work this out. This right here is telling us we don't know everything. We just don't. It's like an opposition when you have a contraparallel. Again, you know, the way this shows up is there, again, our one-to-one, our partners. You know, it's funny, in general, partnerships are going pretty well. It's interesting because I don't think that's what people expected with this quarantine, but I think there is an aspect of that with partners. But still, we struggle with a health issue. I'm going to show you that more in depth. The same thing with these nodes as we go to this next way of looking at astrology chart. So as I go into this next chart, I want to show you here the Aries point, okay? So as we get to this Aries point, which is 0, 0, okay, right here, you notice all these symbols for the Aries point, but you also might notice the nodes, the moon, because they all sit here in this part of the chart, okay? And down here, ornamental. Remember, ornamental solutions are sitting right there, midpoint, straddling this thing. We are doing the best that we can, but it makes it difficult. Realize, as the Aries point, we're talking about the world at large. This is also talking about relationships with other countries. Things are not going very well between rhetoric, between the president's rhetoric, the stuff that China's pulling with Hong Kong. It's just the world. Oh, there's a lot of difficulties. The good news is they're squares, and the beauty of squares, though they may be rumblings, because squares bring that, there is an ability to work things out. It takes struggle and work, hard work on a square, but things can be dealt with. Then we go to the other aspect of the 2230, which is right here. Nope, let me get there. And we have two midpoints I want to talk about. The first midpoint, Pluto, Zeus, equals this asteroid here, okay? Health asteroid. Remember, riding with Pluto is this Thucy, Thucydides is, and this is our pandemic. I can't say it, but it's Thucydides if you want to look it up. And because Zeus is with it, Zeus is like the seed. It's often the beginnings, and there's the beginnings of transformation because of health factors. This is all part of what is healing us, okay? If it wouldn't be for this, we would never heal, at least not this quickly. Thank goodness for a little bit of square energy there too. Now we move up to here, the Apollon and the Chronos. Now Apollon Chronos, that's not bad because that's like, I want to say captains of industry. It's being in business, it's being credible, it's being the authority. And the authorities in business have a lot to do with what's going on right now in the world, not just in this country. It also reminds us that there's more than one authority. And boy, that has been an issue here in this state, but also every other country. There's always more than one voice chiming in. And that causes some headache, okay, if you will. Some of those squares that we saw with Saturn and well, especially the nodes. Let's stay with this aspect. Stay with the nodes and the moon. That's enough, right? So this is also about, just for a second, just so that you can see this. Hey, Cronus is at 11 degrees. Hades is at 8. I mean, they are in aspect. And that just reminds us that sometimes people in authority can make mistakes. That oftentimes, and it's also about the past and how often we got where we are because of the past, or our credibility is based in things that have happened in the past, and how much is that going to play into what's even going on now here as we reach into the future. One more thing here is that I really do want to point this out, that we're at this Chronos Hades thing. We've got this moon thing. We're trying to heal, okay? But when you look at the sun at 10 degrees, you also have to note that logic and the sun are at square, okay? That's also astrology. But there's a square there. So it does remind us that because we're so worried about money or finances or our standing, Chronos Apollon, there is this sense that we are not always going to think that logically. And that plays into everything, because look at all the stuff we have around there at that degree. And that's just, again, another technique for reading. But as I move into as we move on through this process of the pandemic, it is going to be about healing. So with that said, I do want to point out that, as I said, that THUCYDIDES, that asteroid is running back to that midpoint. So we are going to be dealing with this for some time. And you saw it yourself, the health asteroid is still there. This is a part of our healing. So everything that we devise, develop, and expose during this time is going to lead to our healing. And that's what's really important. So before I go, I want to thank you all for being here. But if you wouldn't mind, like, comment, let me get to know who you are. This is new for me. And any feedback that I can get from you is going to be good, and it will help me expand. So having you expand or help me expand by sharing would also be really nice. And as always, if you're looking for a private reading, or if you have any questions about astrology or tarot, please contact me through divinationcounselingservice.org. Until then, happy readings.